Mauricio, Sulaiman, good afternoon or good morning where you are. How are you doing, sir?
Fine, fine. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
Yes, good, good. Thanks. Before we start talking boxing and what's going on in that world from a human level, coronavirus and everything that's going on with it, how is everything in Mexico? 'Cause it's a little bit crazy over here.
Well, it's ever changing scenario in many different parts of the world. Mexico has been hit very hard, and there's a lot of frustration from so many people who have been in complete lockdown for several months, and things have the information that flows and the concerns are very volatile. So people are starting to go out and do their normal lives, but there's always that concern of how the situation is going to be in Mexico and the world.
I want to talk about how the virus has affected boxing as a sport. Before we go into that route, how do you think it's affected from a fan's perspective, the sport of boxing? Because we're talking about great fights that are coming up this weekend, that are coming up further down the pipe, and there's not going to be any fans there.
Well, for a sports fan, one of the most important elements is to go to watch an event live and to enjoy uh, everything that happens when you go to stadium, when you go to an arena, when you go to a football match, the company, the atmosphere, the fun, and the excitement, and to see what happens in that event. This moment, boxing and most sports are limited to taking place without fans interaction, without them being at the venue. But at least we can enjoy the live events on television. So we have to take the best out of what is happening, and just hope that things will go back to a scenario where we can go back to the arenas.
We've had um, we've had a number of different guests on in recent weeks on the Fight Buzz, and one thing that's come up a couple of times is the idea that the long term effects on the sport may be bigger than what we're seeing right now, as in the lower down fighters, if you like. I mean, we can talk about world champions and pound for pound greats and everything else, but the guys who are on the smaller hall circuits who are just working their way up, they may be forced away from the sport at the moment because they can't generate any revenue and therefore have to go down other lines of work.
That is precisely the greatest concern that we all have with the gymnasiums closed for so many months, without the ability of going into the ring and fight the 4 round, the 6 round, the 8 round fights, because small shows cannot happen because there's no gate, so they simply cannot happen. We have that concern, and we have tried very hard to support activity of smaller shows, small promoters, small fights. We have been successful in securing in a couple of countries support so fights can happen, but it's a situation that we must face, and at this moment we have to survive and then win. There's a fight that is going on, but we have to stay in the fight. Um, that's an advice that Bernard Hopkins told me. He told me, at this moment, you don't worry about winning, you worry about surviving and then move on and win. So um, we have just to stay positive, stay supportive, innovate, and do our best so there can be activity.
It's a very good way of putting it. And for all the struggles that we're seeing in the boxing world, we're actually about to enter quite an exciting weekend for the sport, both sides of the Atlantic. I want to start over here where we are. Josh Taylor fighting his mandatories. He's got WBA and IBF and ring defence going on. But then should he get past that, there's a lot of people saying he could be in with the WBC champ, Jose Ramirez. As a boxing fan, quite like to get your opinion on that fight. I know he's not looking past Kong Song, but that's quite a tasty matchup, those two.
Yes, of course. When you have a fighter who holds different belts, it creates excitement. Jose Ramirez is a tremendous fighter who just had the defense of his mandatory, and he's a tremendous fighter. And so Josh Taylor had the best win of his career when he won the World Boxing Super Series final. And I'm very excited. I'm happy to see this happening.
And then over in America, you've obviously got the Charlos, WBC belts on the line now. I want to speak to you about the Charlo twins, really interesting fighters. We've seen brothers kind of hold divisions before. Most recently, I think the Klitschko's is a good example. The Charlos, very tough test for them. Rosario and Derevychenko, respectively. Are those fights that, again, you want to see because it's the best fight in the best?
Well, this event of tomorrow has gotten me personally very excited, very enthused. This is the waking up of sport in our era, because makes me think of the great years in the 90s of Don King putting together 4 or 5 championship fights in one card. And here you have 6 title fights in one night. But not only 6 title fights, there are 6 great fights, great competitive. Each one is a toss-up. So I'm just very excited and very happy. The Charlo brothers are the pride of the WBC. We also have Neri against Alameda, and Payano will be fighting Roman in a final elimination, and also the 2 other organizations' belts. So 6 fights in one card. It's very amazing. I'm very happy for it.
Is that, as a sports fan, if you put your professional position aside for a moment, just as a fan, is that the kind of thing? Is this, what's going on with that, and again over here in the WBSS final as well? As a sports fan, did we need this weekend, just with everything that's been going on? Did we need that welcome back to the sport, if you like?
Yes, that's the way I see it. It's turning on the light. Now we're back. There's excitement. You have this tremendous match or card in the United States. Then you have October, Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez. And they're just starting to announce the great fights. Berchelt, Valdez, and Fury Wilder, which should be announced in the near future. So I'm just very happy that we are now looking at activity and great level of activity.
Funnily enough, I was going to ask you about Fury Wilder, maybe a little bit further down the line, but we'll go to it now. I guess I don't want to keep circulating the same points, but this idea of fans within the arena and Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder is, when the heavyweights collide, people sit up. That's the kind of the notion around the world of boxing. Fury Wilder, I guess, is probably the highest ranked fight in terms of you would want fans in that arena. But it can't wait forever. I guess at some point we're just going to have to move forward with it.
Well, it's a matter of the understanding. You describe it perfectly. There's a point in which you have to simply move on. We have seen other sports have limited fans in an arena. Others are simply empty, and it's just a matter of where the fight is to take place, the regulations of that country or that state. But we have been very flexible and supportive of promoters and fighters, and just try to navigate, as we say, and then move on and have the events take place. So this, without a doubt, is the most important fight. the third fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and we're hopeful that it's materialized soon.
Whereas I wouldn't ask you, Mauricio, I wouldn't put you in the position of predicting a winner. Is there a potential outcome that Deontay Wilder wins and we're potentially talking about going again to try and find an overall winner? Can you foresee that outcome maybe?
Well, it's a fight that will be a career-defining moment for both fighters. First, they had a draw in an epic battle, and then this year, Fury knocked out Wilder in an unbelievable performance. And Wilder, he was champion for 5 years, and then he wants to regain that title and wants to be the champion again. And Fury wants to demonstrate that he is a champion. So it's a fight that would define the career of both fighters, and you never know what happens.
Deontay Wilder's name has been coming up in other conversations that I've seen you speak of in other interviews as well, and it's quite a talking point, this idea of a super cruiserweight division and whether he would fit in that maybe a little differently to the way he does on the heavyweight scene. That conversation has been going on for a few weeks now. Just if you had any update or the latest that you've heard on that, or anything you might wish to add on where
Well,
we're up to with the super cruiserweights.
We are working. Yeah, we're talking. We're doing research, talking to fighters, talking to the boxing industry. The idea is solid. The intentions are positive, and we might end up having the 18th boxing category. But we are doing this responsibly. This has a lot of safety factors that have to play into this matter. There's a gap between the light heavyweight division, which is 175 pounds, to the cruiserweight, which is 200, and then a free number up for the heavyweights. So we're talking to light heavyweights, to cruiserweights, and to small heavyweights. The fact is the heavyweight division cannot be touched. That is the ultimate prize in boxing, the ultimate great division. But we're moving along, and we will let you know once we have a more definition on this matter.
So there'd be no interest in, say, for example, a super heavyweight division?
No. We would never change the name of heavyweight. Yeah. If there's a new division which would fall between the current cruiserweight and the current heavyweight, it would have a complete different name. But for that division, the heavyweight will remain as the ultimate.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I want to speak to you about something that the WBC released last week, the creation of the Middle East Continental Federation. Amir Khan involved there, former world champion, of course, with the green belt. Just talk to us a little bit about that. It's good to see boxing moving over the whole world, and whereas I know it's there, obviously it's getting a little bit more of a presence. Obviously, if you've got like there working on a federation.
Well, this is something that the WBC has worked on for many years. The Middle East is an important region for the whole world. My father, son of a Lebanese father and Syrian mother, always had that dream of seeing boxing develop in the Middle East. My father met Amir Khan when he was in Dallas in 2012. They had a great meeting. And one of the points that they discussed was precisely the Middle East. And that was a dream for my father. I went to Pakistan 2014, and I just saw with my own eyes the tremendous potential, the great athletic build that the kids in Pakistan have. And we just created the Middle East Federation, and we have put Amir Khan and Taz Khan in charge of running with this great federation. We are putting together many different programs, and is going to be very interesting. Social responsibility, amateur boxing, professional boxing, creating boxing commissions. So it's very interesting. It's a mid and long-term goal that has begun.
Do you think it's a positive thing at the moment? I mean, I guess that is quite an obvious question, but the fact that we are seeing, you mentioned the Middle East there, but we're also seeing in recent years world champions popping up from different corners of the world. We've got world champions in Asia, in Australia came around. We are a worldwide sport. It's not just Europe and the US. We are completely global.
Absolutely. The boxing world is one of the greatest opportunity to kids to win a medal in the Olympics for their country or to win world championships for their country. It's a individual sport, and that's where the magic lies, because they can perform and become heroes. And we have seen how the Russian bloc countries, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, the Ukraine. If you see Ukraine, it's one of the most important countries in boxing today. And 20 years ago, there was no professional boxing in that country. So it's a matter of developing areas. China is important. The Middle East is going to be an important factor in years to come.
Just finally, Mauricio, I want to move on. I was watching a couple of interviews of yours just recently, one with some good friends of ours, Boxing Social, Rob Tebbett and the gang over there. And one thing that I thought was really interesting that you took to head on was you mentioned about social media and the positives of social media, but at the same time, the negatives that come with that, and the way that fans can sometimes speak to people, maybe in a way that they wouldn't do in person. I just want to expand on that and ask you if have you experienced, well, I mean, you kind of referenced to it, just what level of attack, if you like, you've experienced on the platforms?
Yes. Social media is a great opportunity to reach thousands and millions. But if you don't know how to use it and how to read it and how to take from it, it can be very dangerous. I have received horrible comments, and what I tell my kids, because they read social media, is just something that is out of this world. I mean, what you read in a tweet or in an Instagram posting or other media, and the anger and the cowardness of some people who rely on being anonymous and just put in there whatever they want to say. But some people can be very rude and very completely the worst things that I mean, very low class. But you just put it aside. You don't take it and stick with that. You have to learn to read social media and to interact in social media. I absolutely respect when someone says something and they do it constructively and they have a foundation of what they're saying. Then you understand and you take it and you learn and you grow. But there's so easy to see when a comment is biased, when it has anger, when it has bitterness, and then you just put it aside. So the key is to know how to read it and not engage in low class disqualifications, because otherwise you'll be suffering every single day of your life.
It's a really good way of putting it. And one thing that I would come back to you on that is I completely appreciate how when you get a lot of it, at some point you just have to say, I'm going to put that aside, I'm going to ignore it. But do you think maybe the sport, as we move forward in future generations, might have to look in some form of training or counseling for young fighters? Because you and I, been in the game for a little while, whereas the young fighters who are coming through, if all of a sudden after a shock win or a controversial win or whatever, they're opening themselves up to this abuse, they might not take it as easily as just putting it aside and switching Twitter off for an hour.
Yes, you make a great point, and I'm gonna take it as an action plan to find a great program for social media teaching for awareness, and I'm gonna create a program for fighters that they can take from experts and become more educated on this topic. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, well, just finally then, I know I said finally a moment ago, but we'll just squeeze one more in. We spoke off air just before we came on. The name Canelo came up. I saw that there was a new purse, an email about a purse bid or potential of what's happening with that situation. Tough Promotions was the name that was on there, another new name coming forward to potentially host that fight. The first question, I guess, do you think we're likely to see Canelo step out this year from what you may have heard?
The situation right now is in there's a legal situation happening within Canelo and DAZN and Golden Boy. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We postponed the first bid, which was scheduled for September 21st until October 6th. And by then we hope to have a clearer picture of the situation.
Okay, well, we hope to see it, but either way, it looks like a very strong end to the year. And I think you'll join me in celebrating this weekend just the fact that boxing is back.
Yes, we have to celebrate and make sure that we enjoy and get ready to see boxing action. As you said, Taylor is fighting in the UK, and you have the World Boxing Super Series in the cruiserweight, the final. And then in the United States, you have this great card with so many title fights. So let's celebrate.
Absolutely. Mauricio, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so very much. Take care. It's a pleasure.